When single father Marcus heard children screaming in the deadly floodwater, he didn't hesitate. Racing through the storm, he saved two strangers' kids from drowning. That night, the mayor knocked on his door with news that would change everything. Sometimes one moment of courage creates a lifetime of miracles. Before watching full story, comment below from where you watching. Also like and subscribe for more stories. The rain had been falling for 3 days straight. Marcus Johnson stood at his kitchen window, watching the water rise steadily in the street outside his small apartment. His 8-year-old daughter Emma was coloring at the kitchen table, humming softly to herself. "Daddy, when will the rain stop?" Emma asked, looking up from her drawing of a rainbow. Marcus turned from the window and smiled at his daughter. "Soon, sweetheart. The weatherman said it should stop by tomorrow." But Marcus was worried. He had lived in Riverside for 12 years, ever since Emma was born. He had never seen rain like this. The water was already covering the sidewalks and it was rising fast. Marcus was a simple man. He worked 2 jobs, one at the local grocery store during the day and another cleaning offices at night. Money was always tight, but he and Emma managed. They had each other and that was enough. "Daddy, look." Emma pointed out the window. Marcus looked and felt his heart sink. The water was now reaching the front doors of the houses across the street. This was becoming dangerous. "Emma, pack some clothes in your backpack. We might need to go stay with Mrs. Rodriguez upstairs." Mrs. Rodriguez lived on the 3rd floor of their building. She was an elderly woman who had always been kind to them. Marcus had helped her carry groceries many times, and she often gave Emma homemade cookies. As Emma went to pack, Marcus heard something that made his blood run cold. It was a child's scream coming from outside. He rushed to the window and saw something that would change his life forever. 2 small children were trapped in a car that was being swept away by the rushing floodwater. The car was moving fast toward the main street, where the water was even deeper. Marcus didn't think. He just acted. "Emma, go upstairs to Mrs. Rodriguez right now," he shouted as he grabbed his jacket. "But Daddy..." "Right now, Emma. Tell her I'll be back soon." Marcus ran outside into the storm. The water was up to his waist and moving fast. It was hard to keep his balance. But he could still hear those children crying. The car was about 50 yards away, moving toward the intersection where the water was like a river. Marcus knew that if the car reached that point, those children would be lost forever. He started running through the water, fighting against the current. His legs burned with effort, but he kept going. The children's cries grew louder as he got closer. The car was an old blue sedan. Through the back window, Marcus could see 2 small faces pressed against the glass. A boy and a girl, both looked to be around Emma's age. They were terrified. Marcus reached the car just as it was about to be swept into the intersection. He grabbed onto the rear bumper and tried to stop it, but the current was too strong. The car kept moving, dragging him with it. "Help. Please help us," the little boy cried from inside. Marcus looked around desperately. There was a street lamp just ahead. If he could get the car to that lamp, he might be able to hold it there. Using all his strength, Marcus pushed and pulled the car toward the lamp post. His muscles screamed in pain, but he didn't give up. Finally, the car bumped against the solid metal post. "I'm going to get you out," Marcus shouted to the children. "Don't be scared." The car doors were locked, and the water pressure made them impossible to open. Marcus looked around and saw a large rock. He picked it up and smashed the rear window. Glass scattered everywhere, but now he could reach the children. "Come on, take my hand." Marcus reached through the broken window. The little girl went first. She was crying hard, but she trusted Marcus. He pulled her through the window and held her tight against his chest. "What's your name, sweetheart?" Marcus asked as he helped her stand in the water. "Sarah," she whispered. "Okay, Sarah. I'm Marcus. You're safe now. Can you hold onto this lamp post very tight while I get your brother?" Sarah nodded and wrapped her small arms around the lamp post. The little boy was harder to reach. He was scared and couldn't swim. The water inside the car was rising quickly. "What's your name, buddy?" Marcus asked, trying to keep his voice calm. "Tommy. I want my mommy." "I know you do, Tommy. I'm going to get you to your mommy, okay? But I need you to be brave for just a minute more." Marcus reached deeper into the car and grabbed Tommy around the waist. Just as he pulled the boy out, the car broke free from the lamp post and was swept away into the darkness. Marcus now had both children. Sarah was still holding the lamp post and Tommy was in his arms. But they were all in great danger. The water was getting higher and they were still far from safety. "Listen to me, both of you," Marcus said, his voice gentle but firm. "We're going to walk to that building over there, okay? Sarah, you hold on to my belt. Tommy, you hold on to Sarah's hand. We stay together no matter what. It was the longest walk of Marcus's life. Step by step, fighting against the current, with two frightened children depending on him. Several times one of them slipped, but Marcus always caught them. His back ached from carrying Tommy part of the way, but he never complained. Finally, they reached the apartment building where Marcus lived. Mrs. Rodriguez was waiting in the lobby with Emma. "Oh, thank God." Mrs. Rodriguez cried when she saw them. "Emma was so worried about you." "Daddy." Emma ran to hug her father. Marcus was exhausted, but seeing his daughter's face gave him new energy. "These are Sarah and Tommy," Marcus told Mrs. Rodriguez. "They were trapped in the flood. We need to find their parents." Mrs. Rodriguez wrapped the two children in warm blankets. "You poor dears. Don't worry, we'll take good care of you." That night, the four children slept in Mrs. Rodriguez's living room while Marcus sat in a chair, watching over them. He couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about how close they had all come to disaster. The next morning, the rain finally stopped. The flood waters began to go down slowly. Marcus woke up to find Sarah and Tommy sitting quietly on the couch, still scared and missing their parents. "Are you hungry?" Marcus asked them. They nodded. Marcus made breakfast for everyone: scrambled eggs, toast, and hot chocolate. As they ate, Sarah and Tommy began to talk a little. "Our mommy went to the store," Sarah said. "Daddy was at work. The water came so fast. Our babysitter ran away when the water started coming in the house," Tommy added. "She left us in the car and ran." Marcus felt angry at the babysitter, but he didn't let it show. "Well, you're safe now. We're going to find your parents today." After breakfast, Marcus took the children outside. The neighborhood looked like a disaster zone. Cars were flipped over, trees were down, and mud covered everything. But people were starting to come out and check on each other. Marcus asked everyone they met about Sarah and Tommy's parents. Finally, an older man pointed toward the community center. "That's where all the families are gathering," he said. "People looking for their loved ones." The walk to the community center took 20 minutes. Sarah and Tommy held Marcus's hands the whole way, with Emma walking beside them. The community center was full of people. Some were crying, others were hugging. Everyone was looking for someone. Marcus was scanning the crowd when he heard a woman scream. "Sarah! Tommy!" A young woman came running across the room, tears streaming down her face. Behind her was a man in work clothes, also crying. "Mommy? Daddy?" Sarah and Tommy ran to their parents. The reunion was beautiful. The whole room stopped to watch as the family hugged each other tightly. Marcus felt tears in his own eyes. The woman, Sarah and Tommy's mother, came over to Marcus. She was still crying, but now they were tears of joy. "Are you the man who saved my children?" she asked. "I just did what anyone would do," Marcus replied quietly. "No," the woman said firmly. "You risked your life for children you didn't even know. How can we ever thank you?" "You don't need to thank me. I have a daughter too. I would hope someone would do the same for her." The father shook Marcus's hand. "My name is David Chin. This is my wife Linda. We will never forget what you did. I'm Marcus Johnson. This is my daughter Emma." The two families talked for a while. Marcus learned that David worked at the bank downtown and Linda was a nurse. They lived just a few blocks away from Marcus, but they had never met before. "We'd like to do something for you," David said. "Please let us help you somehow." Marcus shook his head. "You don't owe me anything. Just take care of your kids. That's enough for me." Later that day, Marcus and Emma returned to their apartment. The first floor had been flooded, so they would have to stay with Mrs. Rodriguez for a few days while it dried out. But they were safe, and that was what mattered. That evening, there was a knock on Mrs. Rodriguez's door. Marcus opened it and was surprised to see a well-dressed man in a suit, along with several people with cameras and microphones. "Mr. Johnson? I'm Mayor Williams. I'd like to speak with you." Marcus was confused. "Is something wrong?" "On the contrary," the mayor smiled. "Something is very right. May I come in?" Mrs. Rodriguez invited everyone into her small living room. Emma sat close to her father, curious about all the visitors. "Mr. Johnson," the mayor began, "the whole city has heard about what you did yesterday. You saved two children at great risk to your own life. The Chin family called me personally to tell me about your heroism." Marcus felt uncomfortable with all the attention. "I just did what anyone would do." "No, sir. Not everyone would have run into a flood to save strangers' children. You are a true hero." One of the reporters stepped forward. "Mr. Johnson, can you tell us what was going through your mind when you saw those children in danger?" Marcus thought for a moment. "I wasn't thinking really. I just heard children calling for help and I knew I had to try to save them. I have a daughter myself. I couldn't live with myself if I didn't try. Were you afraid? Another reporter asked. Of course I was afraid. But being afraid doesn't mean you don't do what's right. The mayor smiled. Mr. Johnson, the city wants to honor you. We'd like to give you the Medal of Courage, our highest civilian honor. Marcus looked at Emma, who was beaming with pride. That's very kind, but I don't need a medal. Maybe you don't need it, the mayor said, but the city needs to recognize heroes like you. You inspire all of us to be better. The ceremony was held the following week at City Hall. Marcus felt awkward in the borrowed suit that David Chin had insisted on buying for him. Emma wore a pretty new dress that Linda Chin had picked out for her. The auditorium was packed with people. Marcus saw the Chin family in the front row, smiling and clapping. Mrs. Rodriguez was there too, wearing her best dress and crying happy tears. Ladies and gentlemen, the mayor announced, it is my great honor to present the Medal of Courage to Mr. Marcus Johnson, who risked his own life to save 2 children during last week's flood. The crowd stood and applauded as Marcus walked to the stage. He felt overwhelmed by all the attention but also proud. Proud that he had been brave enough to help when help was needed. Mr. Johnson, the mayor said as he placed the medal around Marcus's neck, your courage and selflessness represent the very best of our community. Thank you for showing us what it means to be a true neighbor. Marcus stepped to the microphone. His hands were shaking but his voice was steady. Thank you for this honor, he said. But I want everyone to know that I'm not special. I'm just a regular person who saw children in trouble and did what I could to help. Each one of you would have done the same thing. We all have the power to help each other, to be heroes in small ways every day. Sometimes being a hero just means caring enough to act when someone needs help. The crowd applauded again, even louder than before. After the ceremony, many people came up to Marcus to shake his hand and thank him. But the moment that meant the most to him was when Sarah and Tommy Chin ran up and hugged him. Thank you for saving us, Sarah whispered. Thank you for being our hero, Tommy added. Marcus knelt down to their level. You two were very brave too. I'm proud of you both. As the weeks passed, life began to return to normal. Marcus went back to his 2 jobs, Emma returned to school, and they moved back into their repaired apartment. But some things had changed. David and Linda Chin became close friends with Marcus and Emma. The 2 families had dinner together every Sunday. David helped Marcus with his finances and even got him a better job at the bank where he worked. You don't have to do this, Marcus told David one day. You saved my children's lives, David replied. This is the least I can do. Besides, you're my friend now. Friends help each other. Mrs. Rodriguez became like a grandmother to Emma and to Sarah and Tommy as well. The elderly woman had never been happier than when surrounded by the children who had brought so much joy into her life. The local newspaper wrote a follow-up story about Marcus 6 months after the flood. The reporter found him at the community garden where he volunteered every Saturday morning, teaching children how to grow vegetables. Has your life changed much since that day? The reporter asked. Marcus looked around at the garden, where Emma was helping Sarah and Tommy plant tomatoes. Yes and no, he said thoughtfully. I'm still the same person, living in the same place, doing many of the same things. But I've learned something important. What's that? I've learned that we're all connected. When you help someone, you don't just change their life, you change your own life too. The Chin family became part of our family. Mrs. Rodriguez became Emma's grandmother. Our whole community became closer. Do you ever think about what might have happened if you hadn't acted that day? Marcus was quiet for a long time. I try not to think about that. I just try to remember that every day we have chances to help each other, to show kindness, to be brave when bravery is needed. Those children could have been anyone's children. They could have been Emma. In a way, they were Emma because when we help others, we help ourselves. The reporter watched as Emma, Sarah, and Tommy worked together in the garden, laughing and getting dirty. They seemed very happy. Children are good at happiness, Marcus smiled. They don't worry about yesterday or tomorrow. They just enjoy today. Maybe that's something we adults can learn from them. That evening, as Marcus tucked Emma into bed, she looked up at him with serious eyes. Daddy, I'm proud of you. Why, sweetheart? Because you're brave. And because you taught me that helping people is the most important thing we can do. Marcus kissed his daughter's forehead. You're right, Emma. But do you know what I'm most proud of? What? I'm proud that you understand that. You have a good heart, just like your mother did. Emma smiled sleepily. Do you think Mommy would be proud of you too? Marcus felt tears in his eyes, but they were good tears. I think she would be proud of both of us. As Marcus turned off Emma's light and walked to his own room, he thought about that terrible day when the flood came. He thought about the choice he had made, to run toward danger instead of away from it, to risk his own life for children he had never met. He had learned that being a hero didn't mean being fearless. It meant being afraid but doing the right thing anyway. It meant caring more about others than about your own comfort or safety. Marcus looked at the medal hanging on his wall, but what made him really proud wasn't the medal. It was the fact that Sarah and Tommy were safe. It was the friendship his family had found with the Chin family. It was the way his community had come together after the disaster. Most of all, he was proud that Emma had learned the most important lesson of all, that we are all responsible for taking care of each other. 1 year after the flood, the city held a memorial service for the victims of the disaster. 5 people had lost their lives that day, and the community wanted to honor their memory. Marcus attended the service with Emma, the Chin family, and Mrs. Rodriguez. As they listened to the speeches about community and resilience, Marcus reflected on how much had changed. The Chins had become like family. David had helped Marcus get promoted to assistant manager at the bank, and Linda had helped Emma with her homework whenever Marcus was working late. Sarah and Tommy called Marcus Uncle Marcus, and Emma called their parents Aunt Linda and Uncle David. Mrs. Rodriguez had started a community support group that met in the building's lobby every Wednesday evening. People shared their problems and worked together to find solutions. The elderly woman had found new purpose in bringing people together. After the memorial service, the mayor approached Marcus again. "Mr. Johnson, I have a proposition for you." Marcus was immediately suspicious. He had learned to be wary of the mayor's propositions. "The city is starting a new community outreach program," the mayor continued. "We want to hire someone to coordinate volunteer activities, emergency preparedness, and neighborhood support networks. Someone who understands what it means to be a real community hero. Would you be interested?" Marcus was surprised. "I don't have experience with that kind of work." "You have the most important qualification: you care about people. The rest can be learned." Marcus looked at his daughter, who was playing with Sarah and Tommy nearby. "Can I think about it?" "Of course. But Mr. Johnson, this job would pay significantly more than your current positions, and you'd be working normal hours. You'd have more time with Emma." That night, Marcus discussed the offer with his extended family, the Chens and Mrs. Rodriguez. "You should take it," David said immediately. "You'd be perfect for that job." "But what if I'm not good at it?" Marcus worried. "You saved my children from a flood," Linda said. "You brought our families together. You've helped dozens of people in this neighborhood over the past year. You're already doing the job, you'd just be getting paid for it." Mrs. Rodriguez nodded. "Marcus, you have a gift for bringing people together. You should use that gift to help the whole city." Emma, who had been listening quietly, spoke up. "Daddy, if you take this job, you could help lots of kids like Sarah and Tommy." That decided it for Marcus. The next day he accepted the mayor's offer. 2 years after the flood, Marcus's life looked completely different, but in the best possible way. He loved his job coordinating community programs. He had helped organize neighborhood watch groups, emergency preparedness classes, and volunteer networks throughout the city. Emma was thriving in school and had become best friends with Sarah Chin. The 2 girls were inseparable, and both families joked that they had gained daughters. Marcus had also started dating again. He had met Maria, a teacher at Emma's school, at a community meeting. She was kind, funny, and Emma adored her. They were taking things slowly, but Marcus felt hopeful about the future in a way he hadn't in years. On the 2nd anniversary of the flood, the community held a celebration instead of a memorial. They wanted to focus on how the disaster had brought people together and made their neighborhood stronger. Marcus was asked to speak at the celebration. As he stood at the podium looking out at the crowd of friends and neighbors, he felt overwhelmed with gratitude. 2 years ago, a terrible flood hit our community, he began. We lost property, we lost peace of mind, and we lost 5 of our neighbors. It was one of the worst days in our city's history. The crowd was quiet, remembering. But out of that terrible day came something beautiful. We discovered that we are stronger together than we are apart. We learned that ordinary people can do extraordinary things when they care about each other. We found that a community is not just a place where people live, it's a family of people who look out for each other. Marcus paused and looked at the Chin family, at Mrs. Rodriguez, at Maria and Emma. That day I thought I was just saving 2 children from drowning. But really, those children saved me. They saved all of us. They reminded us what it means to be human, to care for each other, to sacrifice for each other, to build something beautiful together. The crowd began to applaud, but Marcus held up his hand. "I know some people call me a hero because of what happened that day. But I want you to know that every person in this room is a hero. Every time you check on an elderly neighbor, every time you help a struggling family, every time you choose kindness over indifference, you are being a hero. Heroes aren't people with superpowers. Heroes are people who care enough to act. As Marcus finished his speech, the entire crowd rose to their feet, applauding. But he barely noticed. He was looking at Emma, who was beaming with pride, sitting between Sarah and Tommy Chin. He was looking at Mrs. Rodriguez, who was crying happy tears. He was looking at Maria, who was smiling at him with love in her eyes. These were the real rewards of that terrible day. Not the medal, not the recognition, but the love and community that had grown from one moment of courage. Later that evening, as Marcus tucked Emma into bed, she looked up at him with the same serious expression she'd had as a little girl. "Daddy, can I tell you something?" "Of course, sweetheart. I used to be sad that it was just you and me. I wished we had a bigger family." Marcus felt a pang in his heart. "And now?" Emma smiled. "Now I know we always had a big family. We just had to find them. Sarah and Tommy are like my brother and sister. Mrs. Rodriguez is like my grandmother. Uncle David and Aunt Linda are like my parents too. And Maria is..." Emma paused, thinking. "What is Maria?" Marcus asked gently. "Maria is like the mommy I always wished for. Is that okay to say?" Marcus felt tears in his eyes, but they were happy tears. "That's perfectly okay to say, sweetheart. I think your mother would be happy that you found more people to love. Do you think you and Maria will get married?" Marcus laughed. "Maybe someday. Would you like that?" "Yes." "Then our family would be even bigger." As Marcus turned off Emma's light, he reflected on the strange way life worked. 2 years ago, he had been a lonely single father, struggling to make ends meet, with few friends and little hope for the future. One moment of courage, one decision to help strangers in need, had changed everything. Not because of any reward or recognition, but because kindness creates more kindness. Love creates more love. Community creates more community. Marcus walked to his window and looked out at the neighborhood where he had lived for over a decade. It looked the same as it always had, but everything was different now. He knew his neighbors. He had friends. He had purpose. Tomorrow he would go to work helping coordinate volunteer programs throughout the city. Tomorrow, Emma would go to school with her best friends. Tomorrow, Mrs. Rodriguez would host her weekly community meeting. Tomorrow, the Chin family would come over for their traditional Sunday dinner. Tomorrow, Marcus would continue being a hero, not because he wore a medal or gave speeches, but because he would continue caring about people, helping when help was needed, and building the kind of community where everyone looks out for everyone else. The flood had taken a lot from their community 2 years ago. But it had given them something precious in return. The knowledge that they were not alone, that they could depend on each other, and that ordinary people doing ordinary acts of kindness could create something extraordinary. As Marcus prepared for bed, he thought about Sarah and Tommy, now healthy and happy fourth graders who still called him Uncle Marcus. He thought about the medal in his drawer, which Emma sometimes liked to wear when she played dress-up. He thought about the job he loved and the woman he was falling in love with. But mostly he thought about the truth he had learned that terrible, wonderful day in the flood, that we are all connected, that we are all responsible for each other, and that the smallest acts of courage can create the biggest changes in the world. The hero next door wasn't special because he was fearless. He was special because he cared. And caring, Marcus had learned, was the most powerful force in the world.